Anita Prakash is a senior policy advisor in the Office of President of Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, Jakarta, Indonesia. Her key role at ERIA is policy research and policy development for leaders and senior officials of ASEAN, East Asia and Oceania, Europe and Africa. Her policy research covers international trade, multilateral governance, and international relations with special focus on economic gravity, regional value chains, and connectivity in Southeast Asia, East Asia, and between Asia Europe and Asia Africa. Her current research focus is on economic connectivity and supply chains in the Indo-Pacific. She has worked extensively on the trade agreements in Asia. She provides policy and research supports for bilateral and multilateral relations between ASEAN and its dialogue partners, the trade minister meetings in ASEAN, the East Asia Summit, Asia Europe meetings, and to the T20 and Sherpa process in G20. Prior to her work at ERIA, she served as director in the Government of India in the Department of Commerce and Niti Aayog. She was a visiting research associate at the Graduate Institute, Geneva from 2016 to 2019. She has worked extensively on the India-ASEAN trade agreements and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership (RCEP). She writes extensively on the international cooperation for development and connectivity in Indo-Pacific. Important works include the plans for Asia-Africa Growth Corridor and Asia-Europe connectivity. She is presently developing the plenary study on multilateral cooperation from the 13th ASEM Summit in Cambodia 2021 and also writing on regional integration in Indo-Pacific. She is an alumni of Delhi University and Australian National University.
Greetings from the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia in Jakarta. And thanks immensely for inviting us to this very timely and important conference. As we are all aware, the COVID-19 pandemic is still unfolding in terms of its effect on the economic outlook, on incomes, and on the progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Developing Asia is particularly impacted by the consequences of past 2 years, and it is important that a roadmap for resiliency and reconstruction of infrastructure is put forth before the policymakers, as well as for the important fund providers among businesses and among multilateral organizations. As India leads the way in this regard, experiences from the ASEAN countries will also be very important and will be complementary to the recovery and rebuilding roadmap in the Indian subcontinent. After all, the economic dynamism of ASEAN is a contiguous process and is interdependent on the regional architecture for development. The pathways to the sustainable and resilient infrastructure were actually put in place in the ASEAN through its ASEAN Connectivity Master Plan 2020-2025, and also through the several international cooperation projects, such as the Trilateral Highway, Asia-Africa Growth Corridor, and not the least through infrastructure projects in the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. All these infrastructure initiatives were contingent around trade and growth of income and improving the livelihoods in the region. Equally, the region was performing well in the progress towards SDG 2030. In 2020, the UNSCAP had reported that development efforts in the ASEAN region had resulted in significant gains on goal number 1, that is no poverty, goal number 2, zero hunger, goal number 3, good health and well-being, goal number 5, goal number 6, clean water and sanitation, goal 8, decent work and economic growth, as also goal 15, life on land. Equally, in terms of social and institutional gains, gender equality, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and international partnership for the SDGs were making reasonable progress too in the region. And all these were closely interlinked with rural and urban well-being and sustainable livelihood. Countries in ASEAN and other parts of developing Asia and Africa have now reported several challenges in meeting the goals of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, because the progress is disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic and accompanying economic and social crisis. Many of the countries have actually reversed years of progress made on poverty, hunger, healthcare, and education. The ASEAN has adopted, in view of these very difficult forces working against the civil society, ASEAN has adopted ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, ACRF for short, for enhancing the resilience of ASEAN's recovery and rebuilding of the rural and urban infrastructure, and for the economy as a whole, in which ASEAN should step up its efforts to promote sustainability and socially responsible policy making at both national as well as regional levels. And the ACRF has 5 broad strategies, but the very important one and relevant to this conference is the strategy for advancing towards a more sustainable and resilient future, which actually reflects ASEAN's commitment to develop a recovery framework that is durable and is inclusive and is somewhat capable of safeguarding the region's natural resources, social fabric, and the very prosperity of its people. The broad strategy recognizes that a return to what is called a business as usual model is no longer an option for ASEAN in the post-pandemic world. And a paradigm shift will be required of ASEAN governments, even businesses and the civil society, to work collectively to enable some kind of a systemic change needed by the region for a sustainable and resilient future. So typically, beyond the direct and immediate impacts of COVID-19, the pandemic has highlighted the vulnerabilities in our economy and society, from the widening inequalities. It has focused on the unsustainable production and consumption models in the society. The pandemic has actually underscored the need to take on a strategic and a holistic approach to manage disasters and emergencies in the future, with a view to better shield the economy, society, and make effective a broader developmental agenda. And to support this advancement towards a more sustainable and resilient society, economy, some key priorities have been identified in ASEAN and which are easily replicable in other parts of developing Asia and Africa too. Foremost, promoting sustainable development requires an all-dimensional approach. Research evidence suggests that sustainability challenges are much more complex, and they present a more daunting scenario than a pandemic. In fact, these challenges have been in existence even before the COVID-19. The pandemic has only highlighted the importance of addressing them. And any failure to address these issues in the recovery efforts could have more problematic and a longer term impact than those which are currently seen with the COVID-19 pandemic. ASEAN has been advancing sustainable development cooperation through promoting complementarities between the ASEAN Community Vision 2025 and the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The work of ASEAN Center for Sustainable Development Studies and Dialogue and the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, the ACB, are very important here, and they are meant to ensure the implementation of the ACRF strategies. International cooperation with these two bodies will therefore become very important in an equitable recovery along the entire region. In the rebuilding phase, the transition to sustainable energy will be very important. Climate changes represent a fundamental risk given the potential scale of carbon emissions and environmental pollution. ASEAN is especially prone to many natural disasters, as is the Indian subcontinent. So decarbonization strategies will provide a climate resilient solution for building infrastructure to generate job economic activities. So transition to renewable energy and energy efficiency will be some kind of a corollary to this plan. Sustainable energy is integral to the growth strategy in ASEAN, as it should be elsewhere in developing Asia. So recovery efforts are greatly reliant on addressing the basic infrastructure gaps and in building green infrastructure. While there is a global liquidity crunch ahead of all the economies in Asia, and this will be an important consideration in the planning process. Investing in basic and green infrastructure would still bring about significant near-term job creation to support the recovery. Sustainable infrastructure will be critical to pandemic recovery and adaptation to the new normal. In ASEAN, the Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity 2025 continues to promote infrastructure investment through what is called the Initial Rolling Priority Pipeline of ASEAN infrastructure projects. And this is designed to help the member countries to prioritize and implement sustainable infrastructure projects in line with international best practices. India is doing something similar in the Gati Shakti, and these kind of model exchanges and knowledge exchanges are very important for the region as a whole. About half of the ASEAN population is already living in urban areas. So the ASEAN Smart Cities Network, or the ASEAN, could provide a collaborative platform to exchange best practices and lessons learned in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, and even for developing the recovery strategies using technological innovations. So ASEAN would also continue to cooperate with various partners within the framework of ASEAN Sustainable Urbanization Strategy. This is a very important feature of ASEAN Community Vision. And synergizing the ASEAN Smart City Network and the ASEAN Sustainable Urbanization Strategy will be important in addressing the urban challenges brought by the COVID-19. And these will be important platforms for other similar agencies in the Indian subcontinent also to find out where the synergizing of efforts can take place. Because these agencies are working towards long-term urban resilience. And finally, promoting sustainable and responsible investment for the ASEAN's economic resilience is conjoined with the UN 2030 agenda, as it is also conjoined with the development plans of the rest of developing Asia. And in this, it is my sincere belief that the local economic linkages and environmental sustainability would be as important as good governance. So we really must work towards greater dialogue between regions. The entire region, for example, could benefit from the G20 policy works on sustainable infrastructure and financing. Now, Indonesia is chairing the G20, and next year, the presidency of G20 will come to India. This will be a very important occasion for participating in and developing the policy works on sustainable infrastructure and financing. Promotion of sustainable and responsible investment, it's a collective endeavor, and the responsibility rests not only with governments and policymakers, but also with other stakeholders such as investors and the civil society. And therefore, a policy-mandated dialogue platform becomes very important. And I see UBCT performing a very important role in this endeavor. There are several other important issues left to be discussed. Productivity in agriculture provides a direct linkage between livelihood, rural-urban connectivity. And I sincerely hope to see the UBCT to include and to discuss these important linkages on another related occasion. In view of the time allocation, I would like to end here the ASEAN model for recovery and rebuilding sustainable infrastructure and livelihoods in the post-pandemic phase. With these thoughts, I once again congratulate the UBCT for organizing this very important dialogue. I wish this conference and the organizing team every success over the next 2 days of the conference. Thank you very much.